Thank you for being here today. I am Maricela Novoa, Early Learning Connection Bilingual Specialist at ESU 10. I am excited to welcome you to the 7th Annual Thriving Children, Families, and Communities Conference. This year, I had the pleasure of serving on the Conference Planning Committee, and on behalf of the entire group, I thank you for joining us today. I see many familiar Thriving Children attendees in the crowd, and people who may be attending the conference for the very first time. In fact, it happens to be the largest in-person Thriving Children's conference ever. We have more than 700 community leaders from 149 Nebraska communities planning to be here today. Why? Very simply, it is because we know that access to quality childcare and early learning is essential to helping Nebraska's children, families, businesses, and communities to thrive. Our goal is simply to inform, inspire, and motivate Nebraskans to support and implement quality early childhood programs and services to their communities. But today's conference isn't just about getting started on this important work. No, Nebraska's communities are already doing this. They are leading the way. You are leading the way. Today is about sharing and celebrating your community stories. It is about learning from each other and hearing new ideas. It is about coming together, finding solutions, and creating a brighter future. Take a moment and look around the room. You'll find state and local business leaders, elected officials, early childhood professionals, philanthropists, and more from across Nebraska and beyond. Everyone you see is an early childhood and community champion. I would like to introduce the policymakers, elected officials, and staff members, and candidates in attendance. They are making time to prioritize children, families, and communities by being here today. Please stand when I mention your name. I do ask to our audience to please hold your applause until everybody has been introduced. Senator Mike Jacobson, Senator Christy Amenderes, Nebraska State Board of Education and a Lexington friend, Lisa Freaky, Schuyler, Mayor Art Lindbergh, Lincoln County Commissioner Michaela Wohler, Cumming County Supervisor Judy Mutzenberger, Nebraska Department of Economic Development Director Casey Bellitz, Director of Central Nebraska Constitute Service for U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts and Sarah Hart, District 27 Legislative Candidate Jason Prokop, District 37 Legislative Candidate Lana Peaster, and members of the Nebraska Association of County Officials. If you're a policymaker, elected official, or candidate and I haven't introduced you, I ask you to stand and be recognized at this time. Please join me in thanking these individuals for their work on behalf of children, families, and communities across Nebraska. A conference like this does not come together without fantastic partnership and hard work. You'll find a list of our sponsors on the slide behind me, and you'll recognize the talented members of the conference planning committee by the planning committee designation on their name tags. Please be sure to thank them for their commitment to early childhood in Nebraska when you see them today. As the We Care for Kids survey results on the table in front of you confirm that Nebraska strongly recognizes the quality affordable childcare is essential to the ability to strengthen our economy and help workers be able to provide to their families. I invite you to share your feedback today with these on your table and give feedback to our speakers in real time and let them know what really impacts you and if you find their ideas insightful. It has a direct impact on Nebraska's ability to be a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Nobody recognizes this as well as our state legislators. We are honored to have Nebraska State Senator Mike Jacobson with us today because he too understands the importance of this issue. Senator Jacobson was appointed to seat in the Nebraska legislature in February 2022 and was subsequently elected to the seat that same year. A native of Hastings, he is a farmer and president and CEO of the Nebraska Land Bank. He received a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics, agricultural education from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and continues his studies in banking and management. He is a member of numerous boards and civic groups, including the Federal Home Loan Bank of Topeka, Farm Foundation, Great Plains Health, and more. I'd like to welcome Senator Jacobson to the stage for a few remarks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. I understand I've got 10 minutes, so I think you down there need to tell me when it's time to get the hook here. So I could go on and on, but I'm going to try to stay very brief and focused on remarks. Well, it is a privilege to be here and speak to this group. I can tell you that this is evidence of the degree to which we have a child care challenge in Nebraska that is really having a significant impact on economic development. I think we've often talked about, and I know Brian Sloan and others at the state chamber would tell you that if we had 1 million people to our state, we fixed our tax problem without doing anything else. But the problem is how do we get those people here and how do we keep them here? And it isn't one simple solution, it's a number of solutions. We've got this long chain. And what we've got to do through this chain is we've got to figure out where the weak links are, and we've got to start with the weakest link, but we've got to be working on a number of links at the same time because there's not any one thing that makes the difference. One of the reasons that child care is so important to me is I wrote a little piece for First 5 Nebraska about 10 years ago. And as you know in the introduction, I grew up on a farm in Clay County and we raised corn, and I still am involved in agriculture, much smaller extent today. But I can tell you that I gave a comparison to early childhood, daycare, and child care to a corn plant. And if you look today at farmers will spend millions of dollars in equipment to be able to till a seed bed, strip till equipment in particular, along with planters that make certain that the seed bed is perfect, to make sure that you've placed nutrients right where you want it next to where the plant's going to grow, and that you've got the seed depth correct, you've got the soil firmly up against the seed, you got the gap between each seed uniform, so that when that corn comes up, and if you have uniform emergence, and you've got the right moisture, and you've got the right amount of nutrients for that corn plant, it will grow, and by the time it gets to waist high, that corn plant has already determined the size of the ear. It's already determined the maximum size of the ear. So we've already determined the maximum yield that corn plant is going to produce by the time it gets to be waist high, a couple months into its life. Anything you do after that point is now you're trying to preserve the maximum yield. There's nothing you can do that's going to make that yield higher. But there's a lot of things that could happen to make it lower. Yeah, you're going to need Mother Nature's help. But I'm just telling you that focus, that's why that focus at planting and that focus when that plant is really, really young is so intense in agriculture today, because that's where the dividends are. That's where you get the dividends. It's the same thing with children. Think today about these kids that aren't getting adequately nourished, that have parents that might be challenged with drug or alcohol addiction, that have role models that really don't provide the role model that they need. When I was meeting during the campaign, I met with some daycare providers in North Platte, and I was hearing one of the challenges that they had was they said one of our concerns are that we'd like to be able to see that we could get reimbursed for these people that are on Medicare and that we could get paid whether their children show up or not to daycare. And I said, well, why wouldn't they show up to work? Or why wouldn't they show up to daycare? And they said, well, because the parents may not get out of bed and get them there. I'm saying, well, I'm confused. I thought these parents were going to work. And they said, no, in some of these cases, you've got parents that have addiction issues and other issues. And this is that opportunity for those kids to get out of that home environment and to get into something that resembles normalcy. So there's that issue out there as well. We all know that we could build a lot of prisons, but it'd be a lot easier, and I think a lot smarter, to invest in our youth and really try to get them down the right path. Now, there's a lot of avenues you're going to have to go to make that happen, okay? It's not one size fits all, but that's why you all are here. So I would tell you that that is an important piece of what we're going to try to have to get done if indeed we want to grow economic development in the state of Nebraska. We want to get more people living here, and we want to keep the people here that are here today. The legislature is going to continue to be challenged as we move into the future because I think we're all focused on how do we get property taxes down. That's still one of the biggest things that I hear from constituents. And yes, that's incredibly important and is one of the highest priorities that I have. But I also understand that we can't be doing one thing at a time. We have to be doing multiple things at the same time. We've also got to recognize, and for those candidates for the legislature, let me just tell you that one of the things you learn early on in the legislature, at least what I look at, is the difference between an expenditure and an investment. Because we're going to spend some money on investments to be able to invest in our future, whether that be in some incentives, whether it be dealing with some of the child care programs. It's going to cost money, but those are investments if done properly. What we're going to find a real hard challenge getting done is new spending programs that aren't going to specifically result in good outcomes that are going to solve some of the challenges that we have to be able to get more people in the workforce and to be able to solve some of these child care issues. And so that's one of the things I've continued to be focused on. This past year in the legislature, LB 856 was sponsored by my friend John Frederickson. I was a co-sponsor of the bill. Give you a little taste of how things work in the legislature. Of the bills that came forward, John Frederickson, Senator Bostar, Senator Anna Wishart, all had bills. All three are Democrats, registered Democrats. And you'll find that in the legislature, it's a nonpartisan legislature, but it's anything from not being partisan at times, okay? So I don't know. I mean, nobody really cares, right? I mean, there's 49 senators who cares what your political affiliation is, other than the fact that there's 16 Democrats, there's one independent, and the rest of them are Republicans, okay? Just for what it's worth, I think most people run that math. So we do have a cloture rule out there, and some people say we need to do away with that, and quite frankly, for a lot of reasons, we do need to keep a cloture rule. So it does take 33 senators to invoke cloture, and that does force us to make good policy decisions, and it forces us to work together. So John Frederickson, Senator Frederickson, came in my freshman class, and although we have a lot of differences philosophically from a political standpoint, John Frederickson's a very bright individual. He's a very good person. He and I became friends from the beginning, and we've worked together on a number of bills. That's how you get things done in the Nebraska legislature, is you figure out where you agree, things you can agree on, and you work hard together to pass those things. We know that there's going to be bills we're going to disagree on, But I can tell you this, John Fredericks and I are two very good friends in the legislature, and he came to me when he brought LB 856 and said, Mike, he said, I really need your help on this. He said, I need a Republican on the bill. I really want you to co-sponsor the bill, and I'm really going to need your help on the floor if we're going to get this passed. And so I looked the bill over and I said, John, this is a great bill. Let's go make this happen. And so we did, and we did get this passed. LB 856 basically allows for the child care subsidy so that if you are a child care, a daycare provider, that your children, you can get a tax credit for your children if they're also in the daycare, whether it be the one that you're running or another one. So it encourages people not to stay home and take care of their own kids at home, but to go into a daycare facility. They can get a tax credit if their kids can be taken care of at the same time, and they actually get out there and bring other kids into it. This, again, is one of those creative ways to be able to incent people to get out there and solve this problem for us. Now, this bill will be operational. The rules will be done by July of 2025, and then that'll be in place so that we can go ahead and start making that happen. Now, I'm going to tell you one of the downsides. I know there's probably some people here from DHHS. I do serve on the Performance Audit Committee. We instructed Performance Audit to go out and audit DHHS as it relates to the turnaround time for daycare worker applications. That was one of the big things I heard on the campaign trail, that people were very concerned about the time it takes. As you all know, you're trying to run a daycare operation. Someone comes in, they apply to work for you. Okay, great. Now you got to get licensed. What does that mean? Well, first of all, you got to get fingerprinted. You got to get FBI background check, and then DHHS has to go through the process. Okay, and so that's a big part of what needs to get done. And so with that said, it's taking 47 days right now to turn that around. So how many people are ending up saying, I can't make this work, and they end up taking a job somewhere else? We've got to fix that. Now, Performance Audit did do the work. They found out why that was, and largely what was determined by the Performance Audit Committee was that the background checks by State Patrol can get done in one day. That doesn't take long. The problem is that once it gets to DHHS, and in fairness to DHHS, huge agency, and most of the computer systems don't talk to each other. I don't know how you can make that work long term. So we now have identified where the problem is at, and they recognize what the problem is. Now what's the right solution? So I think the original response that the committee was going to recommend was that DHHS invest in their own software to be able to put a computer system together. I pushed back on that and said, no, I think that's a problem. We can't wait any longer. We've got to fix this problem now. Okay, so let's start with what are other states doing? Let's first look there. Let's don't recreate the wheel. What are other states doing? Who else has some canned software that we could use? Can we outsource some of this to someone else in the private sector for now at least until we can get to the point where we fix the problem? But these are the kinds of things that we've got to continue to be vigilant on. Identify why we've got these problems, and let's figure out how we need to fix them. And yes, it's going to take some funding, but we don't have any choice. We have to fix that. So with that, my wife is giving me the boot. So I just want to say again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. This is an important topic to me. It will continue to be, and I will work with anyone in the legislature who wants to continue to work with me to help solve this. So thank you again very much.
Senator Jacobson, thank you for your remarks and for being with us this morning. Your dedication to quality early childhood care and education in Nebraska is obvious, and we appreciate the work you're helping lead in the legislature. Thank you.